I caught my girlfriend cheating and got revenge on her. Basically, I asked Reddit to help me think of a way to get justice while dumping my girlfriend. I never expected the huge response I got, and I sincerely thank everyone for responding. I read every single comment. Almost everything I did was a suggestion I got from you all. The top suggestion was to just walk away, rise above everything, forget about revenge, and suddenly disappear from real life forever. I thought about this seriously for a long time, but finally decided to listen to the only part that matters in that plan, having it be over and then never seeing or talking to her again. Disappearing would mean her trying to contact me for days, and I wanted it to just be over and see the look on her face. Believe it or not, but guys need closure too. Here's what happened, as best as I can remember. I decided that Valentine's Day was the perfect day to go through with it, but since I'd caught her cheating last week, I hadn't thought to get reservations anywhere. Thanks to a fellow Redditor, I managed to get a spot for us at a really nice restaurant by the lake. I live in Austin. I told my girlfriend that I'd come over to her apartment before we went out and make some drinks while she got ready. I had already packed all of her stuff from my own apartment, including the expensive face cream she keeps, and yeah, I fill it with my cream so she'll be wearing my facial every day for months. It was an idea inspired by one of the comments here. I put all of her crap in a travel bag and drove over to her apartment. I left the bag in the car and went in. She busted out some glasses and bottles of liquor for me to make drinks and then got in the shower. While she was in there, I grabbed the bag from my car and put it in her closet. I also hid a 3-pack of protection in the bag but only left 2 rubbers in it. She'll probably find them, think I left them accidentally, and always wonder if I cheated on her. We lost our V to each other and never used protection. She was still in the shower during this time and I grabbed her cell phone and deleted myself from it. I also looked up Theo in her contacts and changed his phone number to mine, for later. After that, I made her a vodka Sprite and spit in it a few times. I had a big shot of vodka and waited for her, and when she was dressed we had our drinks. I hate to admit it, but she looked really good, so I talked her into giving me some warm-up for tonight. A lot of the comments told me I should tap it one last time, and I agreed. I made her gag accidentally a few times right in the same spot I'd seen her doing BJ the other guy. When I was done, I told her that my car was acting funny, so we should take hers instead. I drove us to the restaurant. This was the part of the date that was supposed to be perfect. We had dinner and wine and I went out of my way to make everything seem normal, giving her the perfect Valentine's dinner. We talked about vacations we'd taken together and how we'd like to go back. I brought up old memories and made her laugh. I asked her where she wanted to be in 5 years, and she said hopefully married by then. It was hard at times, but I was already committed to finishing it. We were done eating, so I excused myself to the bathroom to wash my hands. From there, I made a call to my best friend and told him to pick me up in half an hour. That's all the time I was ever going to give the heartless witch again. I came out of the bathroom and paid the bill, give me some credit for being a gentleman still, and suggested we take a walk along the lake. Thanks again to the Redditor, because this turned out to be perfect. There was a little dock nearby and we stood on it, and my hands were shaking, but I finally called her out. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to tell me. She looked confused and played it off very well. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I probably would have believed her. I let her lie to me and then told her that I knew about Theo, that she'd accidentally called me and I'd caught them ducking around. I told her I'd found him on Facebook and seen his bragging updates. While I was telling her this, she started bawling, and I've gotta admit that I was crying a little too. But I kept going and told her how much she'd hurt me, and that I'd been throwing up all week and sick about it. The only thing she kept saying was that she was sorry. The rest of the time she was crying and almost hyperventilating. She would try to interrupt, but I kept telling her to let me finish. I wasn't too sure if I was gonna do this part of the plan, but I had nothing else to lose, so I said duck it. I told her that I honestly believed she was the girl I was going to spend the rest of my life with, which was true, and pulled out a jewelry ring box from my coat. I'd gotten it the day before for about $15 in the same gas station as the protection. I didn't open the box because the ring looked totally cheap, but I told my girlfriend I'd had it for a while but wasn't going to need it anymore. I threw the box into the lake and it totally looked real because of the tears in my eyes. She hadn't stopped crying this whole time and was pulling at me and begging me to listen to her and let her talk, over and over again. I don't know how else to describe it. She was having a total freakout and I decided it was the perfect time to walk away. I told her there was nothing to talk about and nothing she could say. I never wanted to see her again or talk to her. I told her that I left a bag of her stuff in her closet, and if she left anything else to have a friend come get it. I even mentioned that I'd noticed a bump on me and was going to the doctor this week and suggested she do the same. I made it clear that this was the last time we would ever talk to each other, and then gave her the keys to her car back and said goodbye. She tried to hug me and kept saying forgive me, but I knew better and backed off. I walked away and left her there at the dock. My friend was waiting outside the restaurant, and I got in the car with him and went to pick up my car back at her place. While we were on the way, I followed through with the last part of my plan. I sent her a TXT message, which she would now think was from Theo since I'd switched numbers. It said, "WTF, your boyfriend emailed me and knows about us. I don't want this drama, don't call or TXT me again." Seriously. She still hasn't written back. Yeah, she'll eventually figure it out and think I'm immature, but I honestly don't give a crap anymore. The person who suggested the TXT message plan was right. It's like she got dumped twice on Valentine's Day, and you can't say she doesn't deserve it. So there it is. I did it and actually feel relieved, but a little in shock now. This has literally been the worst week of my life, and I'm not sure how I'll handle it. But I'm glad that I reached out, even if it was to strangers. I can't thank you enough for the majority of you out there being helpful and understanding. And if all this makes me a bad man, I'm prepared to live with it. At least I did something and didn't just get trampled and pitted. Update. It seems like half of Reddit now believes I'm just as bad as a cheater now? I'm sorry, but it's been almost 2 days and I don't regret a thing. She turned out to be a monster, barely human, there's no comparison. And I'd love to prove this is real, but there's no realistic way for me to do that without giving out names, and I can't do that for obvious reasons. Pregnant wife is mad I left her alone and homeless after finding out the baby is not mine. A bit about us. We're both in our 30s and have just moved to a whole new city across the country a few months ago, as I had been offered a much better paying job in an area that has generally lower living costs, as well as it being a nice area to raise a child. She is currently 7 months pregnant. With what I thought to be my child, I was initially shocked since we always used protection where I pulled out, but after having some time to think about it I was ecstatic. It was the perfect time in our lives for kids. I just finished the last payments on my flat, low interest mortgages and first time buyer benefits FTW, as well as being a strong contender for the job I currently have. Anyway, recently she has been very distant and reserved. I just chalked that up to pregnancy hormones, but during breakfast she seemed even more distant and quiet than usual, so I asked her what was up a few times until she yelled that she doesn't always have to answer me and walked away. Right, whatever, I was late for work so I went on my way. I got a message around lunchtime asking me if I could leave the lab early because there was something very important she wanted to talk about and didn't want to do it after I got home after a long day, so I finished up my work and okayed it with my boss and went home picking up some subs for us on the way. To cut a long story short and beating around the bush short, she told me that while I was working Hell Week at the lab she met a guy during a night out with some work friends and one thing led to another and they did it. This carried on for a week or two supposedly because I was always working and not spending enough time with her. I worked 14-hour days during that time and just wanted to come home and sit. She mentioned how he lied about using a protection by saying he was using ultra-thin ones and didn't realize what he did until she felt it. The time of this fits in with when she was up the duff. I can't describe how angry I felt after she told me. I got up and threw her sub into the bin and left the house to go for a drive to a friend's so I could calm down. I returned home the next morning and demanded we book an appointment for a prenatal paternity test, which she was initially very much against but eventually gave in and agreed. I booked an appointment that morning for the following week and I stayed with my mate until the day. I took the afternoon off work and drove us there in silence, aside from her crying and apologizing, got the procedure over with and dropped her back and went back to my mate's until results day. Well, we got the results back today and guess what? It turns out I am not the father of that little sprog. I drove us home and demanded she get out and start packing because I wanted her out before I got back from work / picking my stuff up from my friends. She was hysterical and saying how I couldn't just leave her alone and homeless while she was so close to the due date and so far away from home, and that she really loved me and wanted me to raise this affair child with her because it's the only way it'll have a decent life. She's an arts graduate and was working a minimum wage job before the move/pregnancy. I never made it into work. I drove into a field, rang my boss to tell him what happened, and he told me to take as much time as I needed and he'd have a PhD student cover my work. I stayed there for hours just laying in the seat and cried at how everything has fallen apart. I had just gotten my life in order, everything was stable and ready to go for the baby. We even finished designing the baby's room. I switched my phone back on and saw I had several missed calls and voicemails, a few from her, some from her family, and a couple from my mate telling me to come to his as soon as I could. I rung my mate up, filled him in, and went over to his. And that's what's happened so far. I haven't gone back to house yet. I just can't bring myself to go back there knowing that all the plans I had for it are dead. I have no idea what to do anymore. What should I do? Update. I've been sorting things out with a solicitor and her family. I took the advice and after calming down bought her a one-way coach ticket back home. Trains don't go to Witchesville. The morning after this went down, I went to the house with my friend with me and she was still there, which I expected. She immediately waddled over and started hugging me and crying, begging not to end our relationship. I stayed with my initial feelings of wanting her to get the hell out of here. I gave her the piece of paper with the coach ticket and then told her to gather her stuff so I can drop her off at the coach station. After much more crying, she packed her suitcase and I loaded it into the car and drove us. Friend was with us all throughout as a witness, because you can never be too careful, to the coach stand. After getting her out of the car with even more crying and sitting her down in the waiting room, she calmed down a bit because there were people around, but she asked me what she's meant to do now as a jobless, homeless single mother. My response was, "Duck you, Jenny, go to Zach. It's his problem now." Just kidding, I told her that she should try find the father, wished her the best and left. I had a few calls from her family asking me if I was out of my mind and etc., but I've had my phone off since then and I'm just trying to move forward. I might make a proper update on the weekend and turn my phone back on. But for the time being I'm trying to focus and work to catch up on everything. Thank you all so much for your support. This truly is an amazing community and I didn't expect this to blow up like it has. I ghosted my fiancée that was financially dependent on me without warning after discovering she cheated on me. My girlfriend and I have been together for 7+ years, have long talked about marriage, and talked even more about future kids. She quit her job a couple of years back to pursue a medical degree. Last week I discovered she had cheated on me with an ex-BF from high school. I needed to use her phone to call mine, and when I unlocked her phone it was open on a WhatsApp conversation between them. I have nothing against the guy personally, but he's going nowhere in life, and I don't understand why she'd want to be with him. Anyway, rather than sadness/heartbreak, this actually just made angry. Angry that I've put so much into this relationship and woman that I thought would be the mother of my future children. Angry that I've been supporting her through college, including rent/food/tuition. Just angry. So I arrange a locksmith to change the locks the next day, edit, with landlord's permission, while she's at class, pack up as much of her stuff as I can find, and leave it outside. Text her of what I've done, and say if she wants to get anything else I've missed to have her brother come, and get it. I don't want to see or speak to her ever again. Anyway, since I did this both my parents and hers have been relentlessly calling me. They say that what she did is wrong, but it's no reason to throw away 7+ years, and that if I kick her out she will be forced to drop out and waste years of education. What do you guys think? Am I the asshole here? Should I swallow my pride and approach this differently? Update. I was not expecting to post an update so soon, but I was hit with a bombshell this afternoon. Over the weekend, both of our parents had tried to come talk to me. However, I had simply ignored the knocks on the door, and eventually they left. However, of course they know that I can't avoid work. So they wait outside my house this afternoon to ambush me as I get home from work. With them is my girlfriend. They insist I talk to my girlfriend, and I eventually relent and our parents leave. Once inside, she starts apologizing and begging for forgiveness. Saying that our relationship is the best thing that ever happened to her, she will never forgive herself. Basically everything that you'd expect a cheater to say. And then she gives the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. She says that a few weeks ago she found out she was pregnant, she started having conflicted feelings on if she was ready to settle down and start a family, and so she reached out to her ex for support. This emotional support quickly turned physical. This makes no sense. We have always talked about having kids excitedly. She takes out 2 pregnancy tests, showing positive results. She also takes out an unused one and says she can take it now if I don't believe her. So she takes it, and sure enough, she's pregnant. She says it's 100% mine as she didn't cheat on me until after she got pregnant. I asked to see her phone. She reluctantly hands it over and, sure enough, she's been texting him nonstop since I threw her out. I tell her I need time to process this and ask her to wait outside. Once outside, I lock the doors, unblock her on WhatsApp, and send her a long text. I'm reciting this by memory so I don't have to open WhatsApp and see her reply. Whether you end up having this baby is entirely up to you. But you should know the following. First, if the child is mine, I will be a good father and take care of it, but you will never be anything more than the mother of my child. We will never get back together. The moment you cheated on me, our relationship was over for good. Secondly, I will not interact with you at all until the child is born. Don't reach out to me until then, I want nothing to do with you. Finally, I will not have any role in the kid's life nor will I sign any birth certificate until I get a paternity test. This child could have been the greatest blessing to our relationship and future, instead you turned them into an excuse to cheat. I will never forgive you for that. I have not read her reply, and don't intend to tonight. I also won't post any updates after this. I get the impression that the kid is probably mine, so I'm basically anchored to her for the rest of my life now. My wife had 3-year affair with her college professor. My wife and I have been married for almost 10 years. We're both in our mid-30s. A few years ago, she decided she wanted to go back to college and get her master's degree. We both thought it was a good idea. Our married life was great and we were both very happy. It was the happiest I had ever been. When she started going back to school, life obviously got busier because she had more on her plate. After a few months, her behavior started to change. She'd stay out later than normal to study at the university library where she'd meet up with people from class for various projects. Sometimes, she'd forget something at the office and have to go get it, even though it was late. I had a feeling something was off, but I had no proof. Everything she said made sense. Sometimes, I would verify things or try to find inconsistencies. But nothing. Everything seemed normal. I just thought I was being paranoid. One Saturday morning, I sat down to check my emails. We share a home computer, which she sometimes uses for homework. I noticed she forgot to log out of her account from the night before. Before logging her out, I see tons of emails from one person. I didn't recognize the name. So I went to her Facebook and Instagram accounts to see if she was friends with this guy. Nope. So I Googled him and it turned out it was her college professor. He was in his 50s, married and had 3 teenage kids. It looked like he was happily married. I was relieved and didn't think much else about it. The emails seemed innocent. I remember when I was in college, I emailed back and forth with professors all the time. From then on, I never noticed anything suspicious. Again, I thought I was being paranoid. Some time goes by and life gets easier. She was really hitting her stride with school and she wasn't as stressed or busy anymore. We had more time together and we started building a house. Life was essentially on cruise control. Until the nightmare began. It was a Thursday and I decided to come home early and surprise her because I wanted us to go out for dinner at this new place that just opened. As I was driving down our street, I noticed a car pulling out of my driveway. We passed each other and I immediately recognized the guy. It was her old college professor. So I immediately go inside the house and found my wife standing in the kitchen wearing just a towel. She was so stunned that she didn't even know what to say. Like she was fumbling her words asking me why I was home. I immediately asked why her professor had just left our house and why was she in a towel. She told me I was overreacting and nothing had happened. So I went straight up to our bedroom and she tries to stop me. When I got to our room, it was obvious what had happened. I told her I was going to contact his wife if she didn't tell me everything. Finally, she broke down and admitted it all. They had been having an affair on off for 3 years. She said it started the semester after she left his class. But she claims that she was brainwashed by him and that she didn't really want to do it. She said he was in a position of power, even though he wasn't her professor anymore, and claims she was manipulated into a sexual relationship over a 3-year period. It's been a week since I found out. I moved my stuff out that next morning when my wife was at her parents' house and I contacted a divorce attorney. I feel like a zombie. None of this even seems real. My wife has been texting, calling and emailing me nonstop asking for forgiveness and a second chance. Her family's trying to contact me as well to convince me to give her another shot. Today, I finally blocked her on everything and her family. Fortunately, I have a great support system and everyone has been super helpful. I'm going to schedule an appointment with a therapist next week so I can get the ball rolling. I know it will take time to heal and I know I deserve better. Sorry for the long post. I really needed to get this off my chest. Cheating wife wants to have her affair but comes home to a stable house, so I'll give her a lesson. My wife and I have been together for just over 4 years. We had a child at the start of this year. We have always spent lots of time together and never had any serious arguments, and I've always trusted her zero and never doubted her. But things have changed over the past 2 months. We both go to the gym 5 days a week. This always used to be together, but since child has arrived we now have to go separately. So we do see less of each other. And then having a child always adds some stress to a relationship, especially in the first year. About 2 months ago my wife opened up and said she wasn't feeling the love from me as much as before, but wanted it to get better. She put this down to me being too passive and not paying enough attention to her in the evenings after baby is in bed and just generally not being as close. I reflected on this and admitted that in hindsight that had probably been the case. Having a baby is time-consuming and draining, so I guess when we did have free time all I wanted to do was relax, whereas before we would have gone out etc. Still, that was my fault, so I stated to try and rectify. So over the coming weeks I start putting in more effort. Flowers, being closer, some more compliments etc. But I wasn't really getting much of a response. So after 3 to 4 weeks I said just that. She then replied saying it felt forced. Now she has made some new friends lately and some old friends have come out of the woodwork. So she is going out a lot more, coffees, dinners etc. She had also become very protective of her phone. Basically on her 24/7, always messaging, but touring it off as soon as I walked over. She also recently went back on the pill we have been using, as she said it would make sex flow better. This was when she wasn't really showing any affection even though. I then noticed she had purchased some quite kinky underwear. She hid this in her drawer but receipt was left out. I took them downstairs and although initially not quite knowing what to say, she said it was to try and spice things up. She was keeping them a secret until the right time. Yesterday we went for dinner and when I came back from the toilet she didn't see me and I noticed she was messaging this guy from the gym. As soon as she saw me she clicked off it and tried to change the subject, but I called her out and asked what he wanted. She said they were just messaging about the gym and that was it. Anyway, next morning she left her phone unattended, for first time in months, and I decided to check it. This guy had sent her a message 2 minutes previous saying about our relationship and how she might have to let me go. But all previous messages had been deleted. So obviously she didn't want me to see them. So I confronted her about it all. She said she was messaging him because he gets the same issues with his other half, so it was easy to talk to him about it. And apparently they also message a lot about general stuff. So why delete the messages? I asked her how long they have been messaging and it was about 2 months. She said she would never cheat on me and promised it wasn't anything like that and she wants to make things better. And that it was a mistake messaging him. Now in the past I would have taken my wife's promise as law, but after the last few months of suspicious behavior, I can't be totally convinced. The platform she was messaging on has a service where you can retrieve deleted files. Initially, I demanded to see them, but she didn't want to, promising she would never cheat and there was nothing to worry about on that side of things. I want to see them for zero proof. After the last months of suspicious behavior. Update. She downloaded the data to her phone while she was out driving. Then when she was back, sent it to me. No sign of the messages that I obviously know she sent. So I looked through them all and obviously said there was no sign of them. She then starts being nicer, saying, "Do you want to talk?" and even offered a hug. After dinner, I stated I needed them on my laptop. Downloaded from Instagram, straight in front of me. I sound strange, but can't be 100% sure unless all done in front of each other, not in the car. She has then erupted and left. Update. Data download from Instagram isn't showing messages that have been deleted, so no luck on that. All my instincts are telling me she's cheating, but she obviously totally denies it and I haven't got hard evidence. She will be going to stay with her parents for a few days tomorrow as I think things over. Never thought I'd be put in this situation, and with a little boy it only makes things worse. Update. I messaged her a few weeks ago with strong suspicions that my wife was cheating. I have confirmed this through a listening device in the car, where I can hear the guy getting in and sexual activity occurs. Unfortunately, it was not a recording device. Now I have confronted my wife about 2 weeks ago with my suspicions and she threw it back in my face, denying anything was going on and saying, "You don't trust me," classic red flag. She's been saying for the past 2 months she wasn't feeling as loved by me, but when I started doubling my efforts I got nothing back, with her saying it felt forced. At same time she becomes very protective of her phone, always messaging etc. Went back on the pill 2 months back and recently found sexy underwear in her drawer. Still she denies. Making out I'm being paranoid and pushing her away. Now I want to be clear and say I will be divorcing her. But I'm not prepared to walk away from her family, who I love, with them thinking I ended it out of crazy paranoia. I have hired a PI and he will be attempting to take photos tonight. I've also tracked her car so we know where they go to cheat. I've also heard her talking to him, on speaker, in the house, while I'm not there, so we'll be bugging that too. We have a 9-month-old boy, so this won't be easy to do. I loved my wife and never thought I'd be in this position, and every part of me wants to make it work. But she is a cheat who has been systemically lying and gaslighting me for the last 2 months. There is no love from her anymore. I could never trust her again. Worse than that, the guy she's cheating on is an ex-convict who served 5 years for a group break-in. Plan to break the news to her over the weekend, just not quite sure how yet.